Slaughterhouse-Five was a very fun and interesting book. Its crazy plotline and scientific use, like this Tralfamadorian right here, made me like the book a lot. The book deals with a serious topic, however, and that is war. Vonnegut uses great black humor to make the book seem more lighthearted and funny. Overall, this book's main theme is anti-war and death and its effects on society. Slaughterhouse-Five is a powerful anti-war book set in the world of science fiction. The author, Kurt Vonnegut, was a soldier in World War II who was captured and held as prisoner of war in Dresden, Germany. Dresden, located in northern Germany, was considered an open city and known for its museums, music halls, and architecture. It was not a military complex and was an oasis for refugees fleeing the Soviet Union troops that were marching across Germany. With the war near over, British and American planes dropped 3,300 tons of bombs over Dresden, killing hundreds and thousands of civilians. Ironically, American bombing crews, who prided themselves using precision bombing through the most advanced bombing site technology in the world, for the first and only time in the war, did not use this tool. The goal was simply to create a firestorm in Dresden to destroy the city, which had no direct contribution to the war effort. Why bomb Dresden then? It is believed that the goal was to show the Soviets, who were about to capture the city, what the British and Americans can do as a deterrent to future Soviet aggression. Kurt Vonnegut survived the Dresden bombing and recorded his experiences in Slaughterhouse-Five in the life of Billy Pilgrim. Like Vonnegut, Billy Pilgrim is an American prisoner of war who survived Dresden. In an attempt to come to grips with this horrific experience, Billy uses time travel to relive his war experience, reflect on his life in a small New York town as an optometrist, and his capture by aliens to become an attraction in a zoo on their planet. Vonnegut has created a brilliant anti-war novel using figurative language, irony, and jumping plot that resembles more of a Twitter account than a traditional novel. Slaughterhouse-Five is a crazy plot, and that's mostly because Billy Pilgrim, the main character, is time traveling, so the plot isn't really in chronological order. One minute he'll be in outer space, and then the next minute he's getting married. It's pretty crazy. So here's an outline of Billy's life. First, he fights in World War II and is captured by the Germans and becomes a prisoner of war. Second, Billy returns home from the war and is placed in a mental hospital. Third, he marries Valencia, his wife. Fourth, he becomes an optometrist, which you know he's probably already pretty crazy since that job is the high suicide rate. Fifth, Billy celebrates his wedding anniversary with Valencia. During this, a barbershop quartet starts to sing, and it triggers in Billy a flashback to the bombing of Dresden. This leads to a mental breakdown in Billy. Sixth, as a result of the mental breakdown, Billy thinks he is captured by aliens known as Tralfamadorians and is taken back to their planet, Tralfamador. These 6 points are the basis for the plot of Slaughterhouse-Five. Slaughterhouse-Five uses a great amount of irony, which is one of the key points to black humor, which is how Vonnegut writes Slaughterhouse. One of the first things is Edgar Derby and how he survives the whole war and then is shot post-war for taking a teapot. Another example would be a hobo on one of the prisoner of war trains with Billy, and he says to Billy how he is very comfortable on the train and that he's been in worse situations. We think that he's probably going to survive because of his confident attitude, when really he winds up dying the next day. A third example of situational irony is when Valencia dies in a car wreck on the way to see Billy after his plane crash. She's a wreck because she thinks that Billy is dead after his plane crash, which really he survives, but then she dies on the way there. Along with situational irony, there's dramatic irony, and one example of this is the bombing of Dresden. Dresden wasn't supposed to get bombed because it was an open city and had nothing to do with the war, yet it does get bombed and is what this book is revolved around. These 4 examples of irony help to enhance the novel and are a great form of black humor used by Vonnegut. Figurative language is another way to enhance Slaughterhouse-Five. The figurative language is used to express the horrific events that Billy and Vonnegut expressed in the war. They can't talk about the war with normal talk because the events were so horrific. We see this because whenever Valencia asks Billy about the war, he always just responds, First example of figurative language would be these three phrases used throughout the book: mustard gas and roses, blue and ivory, and nestle like spoons. These three phrases throughout the book are used to describe things in the war, at home, or on Tralfamadore. This shows how the whole story is connected in the same way and everything relates to each other in some kind of way. Another phrase of figurative language is somewhere a big dog barked. And this is used in scenes of danger or hardships. It's kind of a more lighthearted way to put evil things in the book. Another form of figurative language is the song in the book that is called Jan Jansen. It's at the very start of the book, and this is a song that never ends. This relates to war and how wars will never end. It is said that an anti-war novel is impossible to write because wars will never end. Kind of like a glacier, you can't really stop a glacier. So it's about as easy to stop wars as it is to stop a glacier. But this use of familiar objects like glaciers and a fun song help to enhance the novel and illustrate what the point that Vonnegut is trying to get across. Putti wheat is another phrase used throughout the book, and it's the very last line of the book. This is said to be the only response to war, basically birds singing. And this means that there's no intelligent answer to the war, and it'll just keep happening, and there's no answer to why it happens. It just does, and all there is to say about it is putti wheat. So it goes. You'll find yourself saying this a lot after you read Slaughterhouse because it is by far the most used phrase in the whole book. It is used over 100 times, and it was adapted by the Tralfamadorians, and it's used after someone or something dies. It is basically expressing how death happens and you just need to get over it. It's a very cavalier way to look at death, and it's how our society views evil actions like death and war. This is the point that Vonnegut is trying to get across, and how we should focus more on the evils of the world and not look at death so casually. So it goes. In Slaughterhouse 5, Billy's life on Earth as a prisoner of war and his life on Tralfamadore are a direct parallel to each other. They're basically the same thing. Whoa. Alright, so on Earth as a prisoner of war, the train that Billy rode on to go to his prisoner of war camp had orange and black stripes on it. The UFO that abducted Billy also had orange and black stripes on it. Also, at the prisoner of war camp, he was stripped naked and observed by all the German guards and other prisoners there. And on Tralfamadore, he was placed in a zoo and was stripped naked there and watched by all the Tralfamadorians, like, for fun. Weird. Okay, so also as a prisoner of war, a man next to Billy got punched in the face by a German guard and asked, "Why did you punch me?" And on Tralfamadore, when Billy gets abducted by them, he asks, "Why me?" Both in the prisoner of war and the Tralfamadorians, his freedom is taken away. Characterization. Vonnegut uses a lot of direct characterization in this novel. He's very straight to the point. There's many examples of this, but here are a few. A first example of this would be when he describes Billy as preposterous, 6 feet and 3 inches tall, with a chest and shoulders like a box of kitchen matches. Or when he says Billy looks like a Coca-Cola bottle. Another example is when Vonnegut describes Paul Lazaro and how he was teeny, and not only were his bones and teeth rotten, but his skin was disgusting. He was polka dotted all over with dime-sized scars. Another form of characterization is indirect characterization, and Vonnegut uses this throughout Slaughterhouse 5. He uses actions to describe people's characteristics along with just straight out saying the characteristics. So an example of this is when Billy says about Lazaro, if he had been a dog in a city, a policeman would have shot him and sent his head to a laboratory to see if he had rabies. So it goes. This quote basically is implying how crazy Lazaro is and how he's not really right in the head, and which makes sense because he's actually the one to blame for the death of Billy Pilgrim. Another example of this is when Rosewater's in the hospital with Billy. Without directly saying it, Rosewater's attitude towards Billy and others show his arrogance and that he basically was a jerk. Slaughterhouse-Five was an awesome book. It was super crazy and all over the place, but it was very well written and gives off a great message that deals with problems that still occur today. And like I said in the book, will continue to be relevant because war and death will continue to happen. This is one reason why the book is so great. The message will never get old and the humor will always be funny. Okay, this movie is over. So it goes.